Welcome to your Barbados Today Evening News Update for Friday, March 20. There are 2 new cases of COVID-19 in Barbados, bringing the national count to 6. The newly diagnosed persons are 2 Barbadians, a male in his 20s and a female in her 60s, both of whom recently returned to the island from the United States. On Thursday, the Ministry of Health and Wellness conducted 23 tests on suspected cases, bringing the total tests done to 94 to date. The ministry has initiated the process of contact tracing to identify every individual who came in close contact with all cases and will quarantine such person for 14 days. Prime Minister Mottley this evening announced a wide-ranging survival program for the country to cushion expected fallout from the impact of the COVID-19 crisis sweeping the globe. Mottley told the House her government will leave no one behind as she announced assistance for workers who will be displaced, incentives for business and other measures. She announced a significant boost for welfare services.
We will also implement a household survival program that will be $20 million immediately, consisting of 3 initiatives. Consisting of a number of initiatives. 1, we will support the likely increase in demand for the services of the Welfare Department as a result of COVID-19 and immediately announce here an increase of 40% in all rates and fees paid by the Welfare Department to its clientele that it services on an annual basis. Mr. Speaker, this government in 2018 increased the Welfare Department's vote by $5 million on top of the $15 million that it was then getting for a number of years. The increase that this is likely to cost us is just under $10 million, and therefore you will see an additional amount being supplied to the Welfare Department to help it be able to deal with the increase in fees which has been regrettably and grants and payments made to its client class that has not happened for a while. But there is another $10 million, Mr. Speaker, that we will be using. Barbadians would have heard me on the 2nd of January talk about the need for us to identify the 650 most vulnerable families. We have now agreed to increase that number to 1,500 vulnerable families, made up not only of those provided for by the Welfare Department, but also some of those who the Household Mitigation Unit would have identified who would have lost their jobs in the public service over the course of the last year as we sought to stabilize this country.
Meanwhile, a COVID-19 basket of goods, which contains 48 essential items, will not increase in price. This assurance from Commerce Minister Dwight Sutherland, who revealed today that his ministry, the Barbados Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and the private sector have identified items, including food, toiletries, and health items, which will remain accessible to all Barbadians during the next few months of the COVID-19 crisis.
We saw it fit to make sure that during this crisis, that this list of 48 items that range from food items to toiletries, antibacterial and disinfectants to sanitary and health, baby items, diapers for adults, sanitary napkins, garbage bags, toilet paper, and we saw the issue with the toilet paper. Persons are indeed buying up the toilet paper in the supermarket. Some are even going to the extreme. But this list of 48 items, we said, as government and stakeholders, we do not want to see an increase in prices, even though buying becomes a challenge as a result of international markets being closed, vessels not coming and bringing the items.
Meanwhile, Agriculture Minister Indar Ware assures Barbadians there's no reason to worry about food security because the island's farmers are ready to meet demand.
We have farmers who are currently growing in Barbados 369,378.6 kilos of vegetable crops, which is the short-term crops that is grown within a 4 to 6 weeks period. Now that speaks to us being able to be able to provide all of the vegetables that we grow within a 6 weeks period without having to look to imports. And these are things like cucumbers, things like squash, things like lettuce, cabbage, Chinese cabbage, beans. And I know that people get confused with beans because on the one hand you want to hear about string beans, but I speak about beans because there are many varieties. And simply because there are so many varieties of beans and those who are prepared to do the farming in Barbados, you will find that we get now a lot of the long beans, which are the boer beans, that is highly sought after, particularly in the hospitality sector. And that is the reason why you may not be seeing string beans, but you are seeing beans. In 2019, Barbados produced 304,000 kilos of beans. And we expect to ramp that up to 504,000 kilos by the end of the year.
The opposition People's Party for Democracy and Development says it's not satisfied that those on the front line in the fight against the coronavirus are receiving adequate protective equipment. The concern was raised by the opposition spokesman on health, Paul Gibson, this morning.
What we are seeing internationally is when you look at the incidence among the medical practitioners, believe it or not, there is a situation where they are in direct exposure, and so they must have PPEs, personal protective equipment available to them. And this is in reference to people like the police, the nurses, the immigration department, and those persons on the front line. We are also very concerned that and need to make sure that the indigent and the homeless are being taken care of. They need to know where to go. They need to know what protective procedures and methodologies are available for that grouping, as they are very nomadic in their behavior in terms of moving from place to place.
There's regional and international news after this short break.
It's Festive Friday at the Bridgetown Night Market at Pelican Craft Center. Kick off the weekend this Friday from 4 p.m. to midnight with loads of food, drinks, and entertainment. Get ready for Crop Over with the Rhythm Roots Street Parade. Party like it's Kadooman Day on the street around Pelican Village with costume reveler, music, and more. It's Festive Friday. It's Festive Friday at the Bridgetown Night Market at Pelican Village Center from 4 p.m. to midnight. Admission free.
To regional news, Jamaica's Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton says government will not be rushing to purchase rapid testing health kits to speed up testing for the coronavirus. More in this report from Vashon Brown of Television Jamaica.
Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton says his ministry will have to await approval from the World Health Organization before it can proceed in this direction. He says the ministry is proceeding cautiously.
Manufacturers to say they have this late-breaking rapid test kit that can turn around a test result within an hour or 2 hours. We have been very cautious, the clinicians, as it relates to these kits. The truth of the matter is that every time you have an outbreak of this kind, somebody approaches you and tell you that they have a rapid test kit. We have said that we will only use a kit of that kind if it gets the sanctioning of the World Health Organization.
Dr. Tufton, who was speaking in Parliament yesterday, added that rapid test kits are not compatible with existing procedures to handle suspected cases of coronavirus in Jamaica.
It is not because of a lack of resources. You've heard the Minister of Finance and the Prime Minister speak. If we need to, and it is available, we will get it. This government is very concerned that we deal with this thing quickly. But the method right now, the protocol right now, is to quarantine, then isolate, then test, as persons move from asymptomatic to becoming symptomatic.
On the international scene, the World Health Organization warns that young people are not immune from the coronavirus and must avoid socializing and communicating it to older, more vulnerable people. The comments come amid reports that some young people in many countries are being complacent about health warnings.
If I get corona, I get corona. At the end of the day, I'm not going to let it stop me from partying. We've been waiting for Miami spring break for a while. About 2 months we've had this trip planned.
Like, it's really messing up with my spring break. this virus ain't that serious. It's more serious things out there like hunger and poverty, and we need to address that.
I think they're blowing it way out of proportion.
We hear every night of people who are not in work moving that time into bars and other areas of large gatherings. If we continue with that process, we will fail in containing this virus.
That's news, but for the very latest, visit our website at www.barbadostoday.bb. You can also subscribe to our e-paper, email updates, or like us on Facebook, and sign up for our breaking news alerts via WhatsApp. We're also on Izumi Media and bus terminals, as well as screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you. You can also hear us on Mix 96.9 FM and Capital Media HD 99.3 FM.